everyone, welcome to this week's episode. I'm very excited to introduce my special guest today. I have with me Nicole Barham. She is the founder and CEO of Design Your Wealth and the creator of the 5-Minute Bookkeeper. She works with women entrepreneurs, showing them how to go from being stressed out about business finances and scrambling at tax time to being on top of their finances like clockwork. She's been featured in media outlets like Time, Good Morning America, and The Breakfast Club, where she loves to share her secrets to getting and staying on top of your finances in just a few minutes a day. Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me.
So, yeah, your work really stood out to me, and I was like, we need to get you on the show and talk about this because I'm the classic, your ideal client where I was in the past, where I was just terrible at bookkeeping. I have ADHD. It's just like numbers and spreadsheets is painful for me. And it led to a lot of disorganization. And, it was really like affecting my happiness and my productivity in business. And it's just one of those unavoidable skill sets. So I'm really excited to talk to you about this idea of the 5-minute bookkeeper. I think that's so catchy, and you've done such a great job of leading with the result. So tell me, what's your story? How did you get into doing this work?
Of course. So I was never always organized and on top of my bookkeeping, Sarah. In fact, I started my career in accounting, but I was focusing more on my employer's, books, right? I was getting paid a salary for that. I stayed on top of that. But then when I started my own business, it did not translate over, right? Was not focusing on my finances, ignored it, scrambled at the tax deadline. It's almost tax season here in the US. So a lot of scrambling, trying to get a whole year of finances together, right? And so I was at the point where wasn't paying attention to my finances, scrambling to do my taxes. And then because I wasn't paying attention to my finances, it snowballed into being in a lot of debt, not knowing, where, how much is coming in and out of my business, using credit cards to cover, like all those things that it's just reactive, right? Because you don't know what is happening. And so I got to the point where we were so in debt that we had to file bankruptcy. And out of that bankruptcy came 5-Minute Bookkeeper because I made my mind up. I'm like, I will never do this again. I'll never have this happen to me again. And so what I did was I created this thing because my background is accounting. I know how to do this. And I also know how to create like really simple spreadsheets. And it's so funny that you mentioned that you have ADHD and you spreadsheets are not your thing. But some of my clients who do have ADHD are saying, this is amazing. Like this really is, and I didn't do this on purpose. I didn't even know, how to do that. But they're like, this really works for me because of the way that I teach and how simple I make it, right? And so it's just, 5-Minute Bookkeeper came out of, just being so frustrated with not being on top of my finances and then creating this thing that I figured, you know what, if I'm in that position, I'm sure a lot more people are in the same position, right? And so that's why I created 5-Minute Bookkeeper for myself personally and then shared it with the world. And it's been amazing.
Yeah, and I think, it's so interesting to note that even though you had those skills, doing it for yourself was really challenging.
Yes.
Um, and I think that's, it is just like one of the challenges in being an entrepreneur, right? There's so many things to prioritize your time on, and there's so many fun things to prioritize our time on. And like when we're learning and growing a lot of new skills that are actually really fun and that we enjoy, and then the ones that maybe have more emotional resistance around, which is usually the case with money, particularly in entrepreneurship, because you know there's just more pressure, right? And that can tend
Yeah.
to bring up a lot of our money stuff. And and I think there's so much to be said for the gift of simplification. And I talk about this with like copywriting and messaging. It's actually harder to create something shorter and more simple than it is to be complex. And I
Yes.
think that's true of anything. And, that's obviously the value that you're bringing to people, like the expertise that you have, the lens that you bring. Um, to accounting and bookkeeping, it's, and you've done the work to really boil it down so that it is simple and yeah, it can become a habit. So tell me more about this 5 minutes. Like, does it really take 5 minutes? How often are you spending 5 minutes? Like, what does that flow look like for you?
Of course. So if you're somebody who's listening to this and you're like, okay, I have a year of bookkeeping to do, and I absolutely do not believe I can do that in 5 minutes. And you're right. So it's not 5 minutes, not a whole year of bookkeeping for 5 minutes. It's when you get to the point where you're doing your finances daily, it will take you 5 minutes a day. And if you're saying to yourself, I don't have time every single day to do bookkeeping, um, I challenge you to try it for even a few days, right? And see, because if you think about it, Sarah, if you're a service-based entrepreneur, and this is really geared towards service-based online entrepreneurs, if you have a product-based business, then you might want to use like another tool that's geared towards that. But if you're an entrepreneur who's online, think about how many transactions you have daily in your business. Might be about 3 to 5. On the high end, it might be 7 to 10. And just think about getting 7 to 10 or 5 to 10 transactions into a spreadsheet. And the way that I created it makes it really, really simple, right? That's 5 minutes. We have clients who have actually sent us messages and say, I did this in 4 minutes, or I did this in 3 minutes, because that's what happens when you get into that habit, right? It then becomes so much easier than somebody who has never done this before, and you're looking at it like it's never going to take me that short of time, right? So that's what the 5 minutes is. It's 5 minutes a day to be on top of your finances. And of course, if you cannot do 5 minutes a day, 30 minutes a week max is what we say will get you on top of your finances.
And yeah, and I think that's, making it small and bite-sized.
Mhm.
It's it's a skill to develop that. And so often when you're starting something, usually it's the resistance around that thing that makes it feel hard or makes it
Yes.
feel like it's taking
Mhm.
a long time. And usually that resistance is there just because there's a lack of support, because there's some unanswered questions, there's a mindset shift that needs to happen. And always when we're, creating changes in habits, the easiest way to do that is to surround ourselves with support, like supportive
Yes.
systems, supportive people, people who understand, to really like get that habit going. Do you have any stories of anybody that you've worked with where, they've really um, had like a big backlog? Because that was me. I was in a rhythm where I was only filing my taxes every 3 years, and I was moving around different countries. I was like living in different currencies all the time because I was traveling a lot. And it was really overwhelming for me as someone who, didn't have a skill set around bookkeeping or accounting. And the longer I've been in entrepreneurship and connected with other women, I see that this is a very, very common story. A
Yeah.
lot of women have a big backlog, and then there's a lot of shame around it. And, it does take some work to catch up with that. So, yeah, do you have any like stories of hope with people who have come to you in that situation? And like, what does it look like to get out of that backlog and to start to get on top of your bookkeeping and accounting?
Yeah, of course. We have over 300 clients that we've worked with in the past 2.5 years. So we do have a lot of stories of, clients who come to us 2 years, 3 years, 5 years or more of backlog with bookkeeping. And what we do, we have some done for you services, because even though it's simple and we can teach someone to do that, just the idea of doing 5 years or 3 years of bookkeeping themselves, they're like, I don't think I want to do that, right? Can you help me to catch up and then I'll take over? So we've done that for clients who we've kind of done a done with you or done for you services where we bring them up to date and then they'll take it over, right? So we've had clients who we brought them up to date, they take it over, and we check back in. And one of my clients, Janet Beamer, I sent her a message recently. We're like, it's tax season. How are you doing? And she's like, I'm on top of everything. I know exactly what's happening with my finances. And I am on time to file my taxes for the first time in years, right? So those are the stories. And we have tons of stories like that where clients are behind. We help them to catch up, whether we do it with them or do it for them. And then they get to the point where they're like, this is what I needed. I needed this help to get this to this point. And then they take it over and they do exceedingly well.
Before we get back to the episode, I have something exciting to tell you about. There were a couple of key things that changed everything in my life as an entrepreneur that allowed me to bring in six figures while working half as many hours and having more fun than ever before in my business. It was money mindset work around how I was doing business, combined with getting good at sharing strategic sales content online. I know you know that this is your year to start hitting your 10K month income goal and living the life of creative freedom and fulfillment you have been dreaming about. You're ready to be consistently attracting total dream soulmate clients through the creative content you're sharing on social media, and you want to be reaching more people, charging higher rates, and working much less. So I'm very excited to invite you to join me in Freedom Club, my mastermind, where you'll receive tailored high-level support to master the skills that will create your dream life and six-figure dream business starting now. With focused weekly trainings and coaching calls to find the clarity on your content that's going to make you the most money, to design a simple, fun launch strategy you'll enjoy following through on, plus daily support and feedback from me in the Voxer chat, you'll find that sweet spot in your business where you're the most confident in your work, having the most fun, and making the most money. Go to withsarahmac.com/freedom club to apply now. Now let's get back to the episode. Yeah, I love that we're talking about this because this was me too. And the last 2 years, I filed my taxes early, and I'm like, who even am I? you know? And
Right.
and since hiring a bookkeeper, I think last year was the first year I had a bookkeeper for the full year. And I had a lot of trauma around tax season because, especially in the early days, I was just not earning that much money. So I was, really like bootstrapping it, doing everything myself. And and it took me like hours and hours and hours to go back through all my transactions, my messy, back end organization. And then it was stressful with the pressure of the deadline. And, it was just like a lot of stress to have to process that obviously took up a lot of my bandwidth and creativity that I wasn't putting into serving clients and, growing my business and growing my income. And yeah, it's like revolutionary and life changing, particularly, from the perspective of money mindset, where it's like, if you have resistance around money in any part of the conversation, it is blocking you
Yeah.
from receiving more. Because if you've got a messy back end and the idea of having more clients or having more transactions, and there's resistance around that, whether you're conscious of this or not, you're going to resist growing your business. So it's one of those things that's just, it can have, I know speaking from experience, can have so much emotional weight around it to really move through, when it is actually quite a simple skill set when you have that
Yeah.
support and, you start to build that habit. So do you have a message for anyone out there who's like, feeling all of that shame and that pressure around like not being good at accounting or having like a big pile of mess to deal with, who's just been putting it off, dealing with it, and just putting it off and putting it off? Like, what would you say to someone out there who's listening?
So I would say, think about the end result. Think about what your future self, this future CEO that you are aspiring to be, right? You want to get to the point where you yourself, you're a financially savvy CEO, you are, making the kind of income that will make an impact, right? Think about you're serving your clients, right? How would you feel if you had this financial peace of mind? If you weren't focusing on the finances and I'm not sure what's going on and I don't know if I can hire or how much money I can put aside for taxes or all the things decisions that you have to make in your business that are financial. Think about how you would feel not having to worry about that. And just also think about like you and I, Sarah, I'm sure you have um, something in the world that you want to have some impact on the world, right? You might have some organizations that you support. You might have dreams of, maybe like me, I want to educate girls all over the world, make sure they have a free education, right? Because some countries, unfortunately, it's not free, right? And so if you want to have any kind of impact on the world, on your community, on your clients, in your own household, on your own family, then you're having a clear mind and having that financial peace of mind will take you there, right? It really holds you back mentally when you are trying to build this, business, $1 million business, right? And your finances are a mess, right? And so, getting into these really simple habits, and that's why I make it bite-sized, because if somebody hears that they have to do a 4-hour tutorial or a seminar, they're already out, right? But if you're able to create these habits, right, and start doing this daily or at least weekly, knowing that the end result is you're going to become a financially savvy CEO. Nobody can tell you things that you don't understand, goes over your head. And you know how sometimes you don't want to say you don't understand because you don't want to feel like like you should know this, and you don't want people to judge you. You can get to the point where you are having these conversations with either your bookkeeper or your financial team, whatever it is, and you know exactly what's happening in your business, right? You're financially savvy, you have financial peace of mind, and then you're now able to, get to that transformed person where you're on top of all of it, including the things that you love to do in your business and the things that you don't necessarily love to do, but are so essential for the growth and for the sustaining your business, right? The finances are super important, and I don't I would love for people to change the narrative on that and really think to themselves, finances are important. It should be up there, top three things that I need to be on top of, and I believe that that will help us to get to the kind of impact and the kind of growth and the kind of business that we really want to have in this world.
I love this message so much. And yeah, it is so important. And one thing I noticed, like there was so much resistance in like getting into it, but once I was in it and looking at the numbers, I'm like, this is so much interesting data. Like I'm learning so much about my business and the way I'm making decisions and what's doing well and what's like not such a good use of my time and energy, that like it's really critical for strategic decision making. And the other thing I would add to that conversation is to just start. And I want to share something that helped me. Like I knew this was really my Achilles heel, and I knew it. And so I started with a friend. And I think this was the first time I started doing like co-working, like I called it moral support club. My friend who wanted to start writing, I was like, let's just get together once a week. You can work on your writing, I'll work on my accounting. And we just like had a cup of tea and put some music on and hung out and just like did the hard stuff together. And that really helped me to just like get that momentum going, to just start and take one step at a time and know that it can be really uncomfortable, but like that's the resistance in getting into it. Once you get into it, there's a lot of fulfillment and satisfaction that comes from that. And like you say, it's a non-negotiable skill. If you want to
Yeah,
succeed in business, if you want to have an impact, like there's no way around this, whether you hire it out, and pay someone else for you to do it, or you figure it out yourself.
yeah, for
So
sure. And it's so funny that you mentioned about the co-working sessions, because we have co-working sessions in our community, because we know that support and accountability on the back end. Yeah, we have the tool. It's really simple, but that does not mean that you'll be on top of it on your own, right? Especially if it's the least, favorite thing for you to do. So that's why we also have we believe in support and accountability. We have money dates, we call them, and they're co-working sessions where, as you mentioned, building that habit and having someone else in community with you doing this makes it so much easier.
I love that you do that, and that you've created this place for people to get support with this. I'd love for you to share like what is in your kind of journey of transformation and growth as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, in your own relationship with money. What's another shift that was like really big for you when it came to money mindset that was really powerful or really made a big difference for you and your business?
So it really is, and this really started when I really got on top of my finances, right? The habits helped to change the mindset, right? And I was, because I'm thinking, okay, I really want to do this. I want to make sure that I don't get back to, because it was always about not getting back to where I was before. But then I'm, thinking about I have to change the way I think about money and finances in order to get to get my wheels turning, right? To get going. And then the shift just kept happening. And it was so gradual, Sarah. It's like okay, let's do this a little bit at a time. It was so difficult just starting out. And I did that on my own and never had a supportive community, never had anyone to create a simple tool. I created my own tool, right? So just taking my time and getting into the habit of that, my mindset started to shift slowly, right? And then I said to myself, this is really, and my one of my taglines, or not taglines, but one of my sayings is, the mindset is in the doing. The mindset shift is in the doing. So, thinking about getting into that really horrible place and thinking, okay, how am I going to get to the other side? Let me take baby steps to get there. And that's what really, really helped me to shift my mindset around money.
Yeah, it's so, so, so important to just, yeah, take one step. And I think, you know, in for myself in working on my money mindset, shifting my money stories, like money gets to be easy, I get money gets to be fun.
Yeah.
And I started to see, ways that was possible and take action on that. And, you start to feel the dissonance with like where you feel out of integrity with money. And that doesn't mean that you can't feel in integrity and like you have to have everything perfect and everything organized. But I think as long as you're in process of dealing with it and you're not avoiding it, you can feel back in integrity with it and you feel good about receiving more money and you feel good about where you're going in your relationship with money. But it's that resistance, it's that being out of action that creates that feeling of a lack of integrity that causes you to avoid money conversations a lot of the time and causes you to avoid some of those other actions to grow your wealth. So take the actions, take one small step, chip away at it every day, and yeah, that momentum starts to build. And same thing for me, like it's been such a slow process. There's so many different skills that are involved in making money, organizing money, paying taxes, growing, keeping, investing, like giving, sharing, allowing your wealth to flow back into the communities and places that you want to have an impact. Like there's so many different parts of the conversation, and it's like one day at a time, right? Like start where you're at, take the next best step, and that growth will just become inevitable. And before you know it, you'll have a lot less money anxiety. So thank you so much for bringing this conversation. I think it's really, really important. I love everything that you're doing. Can you please share with everyone who's listening, like where can people follow your work? What have you got going on at the moment?
Absolutely. So I am on Instagram. 5 Minute Bookkeeper is my handle on there. And you can connect and see the work that we're doing. Um, and yeah, that's mostly where I am. Or my website is 5minutebookkeeper.com, just to see how it works. Because I know people are skeptical and they're thinking, 5 minutes. I don't think so. So you can always go there to see how this works and how we make finances easy, basically.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please share this with a friend who you know needs to hear this, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
For more inspirational content, head over to my website withsarahmac.com and please support the show by liking, commenting, and subscribing.